Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, I want to continue our discussion about mortal sins committed while running your meetings. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kale Houser. Yeah, if I didn't mention that. All right. I had such a good time really going on my rant about the mortal sins committed while running your meetings or conferences. Really, if you didn't catch up on that, it was really just me ranting about things that are super annoying to me while I'm in these meetings or conferences. I highly encourage you to check it out. It was episode 145 a couple weeks ago. And just as a quick recap of it, I talked about, serving chips as a snack. You know, these top 5 things, serving chips as a snack if you're going to do that, right? Between the crunch and the crunkling of the bag, super distracting. Loud music during intermissions, especially if this is a network-focused or networking type of event, or there's even an opportunity for people that attend your event to network. Why are you making it to where they can't hear each other, during bathroom breaks or during lunches, things like that? The type of music that is played during those intermissions, right? Not everybody likes your hardcore rap or even country or anything like that. So try to be more applicable across a wide, that's even just, you don't have to go like the full muzak or anything like that, but something more appropriate for your audience. 4 is pretending to be a kindergartner teacher when you're not, to get people's attention. Absolutely drives me up the wall, right? If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap your hands, blah, 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 blah. So stupid. And then the final one I talked about in episode 145 was, the tone that you use and your attitude as you are presenting or as you're running the meeting, right? Is it super boring and doesn't involve any sort of reaction from people? Or are you more upbeat? And you're like, hey, everybody, I'm so glad you're here. You draw people in, things like that. So make sure you go back and listen to it, episode 145, if you haven't already. And please, 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 especially if there's any chance that I am going to be at your meeting or conference, implement those changes. All right, so this is my rant part 2. I came up with 5 more things. And the thing that was interesting to me is I went to another meeting workshop here recently, and a couple of those things were still being implemented. So obviously there's not enough people listening to my podcast, so we need to make sure and get this out. So please, please, please subscribe, like, share, let people know that, man, that Kale Houser, he's got some pretty legitimate topics of leadership that we can all learn from. All right. I really appreciate that. So yeah, I went to a meeting recently, and as I was going through and picking up on these little things, I was taking notes of like, oh, these would be good things to continue my rant on mortal sins committed while running meetings and conferences and seminars and workshops and all those types of things. So without further ado, I'll get right to it. Right. If this is a multi-day thing or a long type of deal, certainly this applies more to a workshop or a conference or something of that nature versus, an actual just meeting. But it could be a meeting where it's a lunch meeting, right? You're providing some sort of lunch or meal for your attendees. Be cautious with what you provide for food. Is it like super heavy carb load, like, hey, here's the spaghetti or lasagna or mac and cheese or, something that really sits in people's stomachs? Because guess what? If you're expecting to come back from lunch and still have another 3 or 4 hours of whatever it is you're presenting or working on, that affects people just biologically. That's just the way heavy carb loads work with most people, especially if, they're already kind of not in peak performance shape. Their body reacts to that and you start to shut down, especially if it's a pure just sit and listen lecture style without a lot of getting up and interacting with each other. You kind of see the point of this, right? By that 2 o'clock, they've had their big lunch and they're all full, and it was like super carb heady, this big pasta or lasagna, all those types of examples. And then it just sets in and they start getting lethargic, and, pretty soon you get people either nodding off or they start getting fidgety, or you get more people that are getting up to get more coffee or just to stretch their legs and try to stay awake. So avoid that just from the get-go. Serve something. I've been to meetings where they serve, various options of salad and, chicken, like a chicken salad or chicken Caesar or, rice bowls, things of that nature that are more light in nature of how they interact with the body, not so much to put them into quasi-comas. And certainly giving people that option to do versus everyone like, hey, you get this lasagna or nothing and go from there. That's always a balance and a challenge. And I totally understand that. It's almost a lose-lose situation because, there are so many different various appetites and allergies and all that kind of stuff. But my initial tip or rant to you would be like, try to avoid those super high, like this barbecue mac and cheese or something like that. Just try to avoid those types of things, even though they are absolutely delicious. You tend to pay for that, especially if you're trying to get interaction from your people that are in attendance. All right, the second one, this was so fascinating to see because it's things that you don't think about until you're paying attention to them. And again, this is where an event coordinator that, is actually interested in learning and making events better is taking notes and observing these things from an attendee standpoint. And this is how I picked that up. It was from an attendee standpoint. Is at one point, one of the presenters had said, hey, everybody, we really would like you to help us with, say reviews on our page, or we want you to go and download this form. So everybody take out your phones and scan this QR code that's up on the board, right? And because the audience is so interested in what you're doing and you've got their rapt attention, you've been doing so good at presenting, they do what you say. But in the middle of that, it wasn't like right before lunch to where people are now on their phones, putting in their information, whatever it is that you've asked them to do, whatever call to action that is. She then proceeds to introduce the next speaker. Hey, everybody, I'm so glad. And she did a great job introducing them. Here comes, so-and-so Jeff from our company represents this department, and he's going to talk to you about this and this, and you really need to pay attention because it's so important, right? She does this really good job. But guess what everyone's doing? They're doing the last thing that you told them to do, which is be on their phone, entering in all this information. Now, granted, this is a fairly quick process. Probably you're just getting their name and email or phone number, whatever that is, download this thing. Do this thing. In this case, it was a little bit more involved process. And first of all, everyone missed the introduction of the guy or, the next presenter. And second of all, for about the first 5 minutes, because I realized I was doing it, like this guy came up and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even know, what was this guy's name again? Like I completely missed it because I was so involved in my phone and trying to do the thing that she had just asked me to do as part of this conference. So you can probably, hopefully see the obvious ramifications of this. You've just told your audience to disengage from your stage and go into their cell phone zone. Now, there are very practical reasons why you don't want to do this. One, people now have brought out their phones. Well, what happens when you bring out your phone? Oh, I got this email I got to check. Wow, I just got a text message from somebody. I wonder what's going on in Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Like, oh my gosh, Elon Musk just just sent a tweet about something that I've got to find. Oh, I got to share it, right? They get caught up in all those other things that cell phones represent. And it could be completely legitimate or it could be completely false as far as how it applies to your presentation in your meeting. So try, if you can, avoid that. And if you can't avoid it, if this is part of your presentation, this is what you do, place it in an appropriate point where it doesn't further interfere, such as right before lunch, where now people are kind of on their own time, they can do whatever. Do not set up the next speaker for complete failure and that nobody is paying attention to his or her, the first 5 minutes of their presentation, as they come out of Facebook land or Instagram land and figure that out and get away from their phones and re-cage onto that. I just thought that was super fascinating. Totally good intentions of what they were trying to do and everything, and it was certainly beneficial to the audience, but just ill-timed in the flow of the overall agenda of the workshop, which was fascinating. So be cautious of that, whether it's an opt-in or writing a review or anything else, when you break people's thought trains and focus of attention to their phones, right? It's very difficult to get that back. And certainly could have been a failure in this part. Fortunately, the oncoming, in this scenario, the oncoming speaker was very engaging and recognized that he kind of had to work a little bit extra to get people drawn back into his presentation. All right, this next one applies to all sorts of things, and this could apply to basically just your business as a whole. Room temperature, okay? How many of you have been sitting in a room, sitting in a meeting, and absolutely freezing to death? Right? There's a very fine set temperature that works, whether it be too warm and everyone's falling asleep and they're too comfortable, or too cold and their brains are disengaged because they're worried about, shivering like this, and they're worried about, oh man, I can't believe I forgot my coat. I didn't think I'd bring my coat, or why did I leave my electric blanket at home? I should have brought it to this meeting, right? You've got all those various emotions. And I, for one, when I'm cold, it is very difficult to activate my brain and think critically about something that's being presented to me versus versus just pure survival. Like, when is this going to be over? When can I get out of here? Is it appropriate that I go and, just stand in the back of the room? All those types of things going through those. And it's a fine balance because, especially if you've got speakers, they're probably just warmer by nature of them presenting and walking around and, just having the excitement level a little bit elevated. So their body temperature is kind of getting elevated. So there's that balance between your speakers being comfortable versus your audience being comfortable. And if you tip that in either direction too far, you're really breaking that engagement and that concentration level with your audience. And certainly there are always outliers, right? There are always people that are like, I can't believe it's 63 degrees in here. Or, why isn't it 80? And it's hard to please everybody. But there are definite points where if you see the large majority, as you're out looking about and they're kind of rubbing their elbows in their arms or their thighs and moving around and try, or even just holding perfectly still so they don't lose their warm spot in their seat, those are all good indicators that you should probably do something about your temperature. Okay, the sound system for our number 4. The sound system is very critical. Obviously, more critical the larger your event. The more critical, the bigger the room and the venue that you're in. It can honestly make or break your presentation. If your sound system is like hissing, or your audio guys haven't got it dialed in, and you're like popping a lot. This microphone doesn't do it a lot, but like everything you say into the microphone, you get that like initial kind of pop, with every P and S and things like you say, and there's that hissing. It's extremely distracting to the point where people are now just focusing on the mechanics of your speaking instead of the actual content. So not a lot that can be done about this without advanced preparing for it and testing, other than having just a really good sound system people that can really work on it and figure it out on the fly when you run into those issues. And certainly the basics of, your microphone's not turned on enough, like you can hear yourself just fine talking, but maybe somebody in the back of the room can't, and all those types of things. So the sound system, it's really not an issue right up until it is, okay? So the sound system should be something that people don't even think about. You have it so dialed in, there's no reverb or feedback or hissing or anything of that nature with that. All right, and then finally, as we wrap up this rant a little bit more, this may be a limitation strictly of the room that you're in, whether how big or how large or whatever it's set up as, is line of sight to the presenter from the audience's perspective. There are considerations that you have to take into account, right? How many people are in there, spacing, how many rows, the type of seating that they're in. Are there tables? Are they round tables? Are they in like a stadium style? There's all kinds of things. How big your stage is, what you're using to present. Is it pure PowerPoint, so you're just projecting on a screen? Do you have the like the easels with the whiteboards, or the flip over paper where you're writing on, right? There's all kinds of things. Are there multiple speakers, so they need access to the whole panel? There's all kinds of things, but you cannot negate the ability of your audience to see you. If you've got everyone packed in there so bad with sardines, and they're so level, so maybe you've got 50 rows deep and they're packed in just next to each other in 2 blocks going down your hotel conference center, but you did nothing to raise your stage. So person like by row 4, they literally can't see you because they're trying to look through 3 heads in front of them, okay? These are things that all impact the ability of your audience to engage with you, because when you don't see somebody, it's just like listening to an audiobook. It's easy to, you're listening, but it's easy to disengage and wander off because your eyesight catches some other, people start looking at other people in the audience and other things going on, and, maybe you got a waitstaff that's walking around with waters or whatever the case may be for your scenario. If they cannot maintain that line of sight with the presenter or whatever is being presented, and even if that means putting additional screens like halfway through, right? Like in big stadiums, they'll have that, or big conferences, they've got the big screens hanging so everyone can see the presenter, even if they can't, they may be too far away to see the actual people standing up on stage. That's something to keep in mind of, how you set up your room, how many people you do, all based on, can they see you or not? And if they can't see you, that means they're not going to engage with you. It means they're not going to buy whatever you're selling. They're not going to learn. There are exceptions because people, there are definitely committed people out there that will do it and learn and take away no matter what the obstacles are. But in general, people need to see you as a presenter. Okay, so that was my mini rant. Like I said, we'll review here real quick. Carb loading for lunch, try not to do it. You're just going to, chemically knock out your audience as they are trying to digest that cheesy mac and cheese barbecue goodness. Cell phone use right before the next speaker, so inappropriately timing your call to action of them pulling out their phone, so it interrupts your next speaker. And then room temperature, certainly hot, cold. That's a difficult one. I completely understand, and maybe even out of your control because it's controlled by the arena or the venue. But it's something to be considered ahead of time. Your sound system also, you have to figure this out ahead of time, not on the fly. And if it does happen on the fly, make sure you've got somebody that can handle issues that arise. Making sure it's loud enough and not overpowering or anything of that nature. And then finally, line of sight, like how people interact with you visually on the stage based on whatever it is you're using to present and how you're presenting. All right. Not as much of a rant as episode 145, but certainly things that if you stay on top of will make the experience of people that are in attendance of your meeting or of your conference or workshop much more enjoyable. So please let me know if you've got other ones that you've found have worked or don't work, or you think I'm just off my rocker with these types of things and it doesn't make any impact, it's just me. Let me know. Leave a comment, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on whatever platform you use for podcasts. Let me know. I'd love to hear it. And certainly you can shoot me an email anytime at kale@kalehouserleadership.com. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this was beneficial. Let me know one way or another. I always appreciate feedback. Likes, shares, and comments are phenomenal. Hey, no matter where you're at in the world, hey, have a fantastic, afternoon. Hey, bye.